Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Audit Committee meeting of March 24th, 2025. My name is Kathy Daigle-Gammon. I'm happy to be Chair of Audit and Finance, and we'll call this meeting to order and do our land acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We would ask for approval of the minutes of August 21st, 2024. Councillor Morse, a seconder. Councillor Gillis. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. Before we continue on, I would like to welcome our volunteer members of the Audit Committee. And with us today is Tyro Lawal. Welcome. And Shweta Sharma is also another volunteer member and may be joining us shortly. We'll ask for approval of the order of business and the approval of additions or deletions. Madam Clerk Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions have been received by the Clerk's Office, Chair.
Thank you. Declaration or call for declaration of conflicts of interest. Seeing none, we'll proceed to item 5, which is the audit of the consolidated financial statements of HRM to March 31st, 2025. So we have Paul James with us. James, sorry. Lead audit for engagement partner with KPMG, and will be providing us with a presentation, and then supported by David Harley, Director of Accounting and Financial Reporting. Can also help with any questions from the committee. I think, yep, Dave's there. Great. Welcome, Mr. James.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take you through our audit planning report presentation. Our team in the current year, myself as the lead audit partner, Rebecca Foster, who joins me here today, she'll be our senior manager, and Lauren Will be our audit manager. Matthew's our engagement quality control reviewer and has been involved in the past as a team member, and is a second partner review on our audit file. So from a scope perspective, our audit is of the consolidated financial statements of the municipality and its subsidiaries as of and for the year ended March 31st, 2025, and will be performed in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Our materiality is set at $17 million in the current. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. Our materiality is set at $17 million. We will have involvement of other specialists in the file, which I'll get to in a minute. This is a group audit under the auditing standards, and you can see, I'll get into these numbers in a little bit, but there are subsidiaries which are have involvement of other auditors, which are non-KPMG, which we'll speak to obviously in a second as well. Our one significant risk, which is a significant risk for 100% of the audits that we conduct based off of the auditing standards, is the risk of management override of controls, which I'll discuss in a moment as well as to how we mitigate that risk. So materiality, we conduct a materiality determination as part of our planning process. And we also reassess it throughout the course of our audit to make sure that there's nothing that has changed as we continue to do our audit that may impact the materiality number. We initially determined materiality to provide a basis to help us with the timing and extent of our risk assessment procedures, identifying and assessing what those risks of material misstatement are within your financial statements, and determining the nature, time, and extent of what the procedures are that we conduct in order to mitigate those risks. We also use materiality to evaluate the effect of identified misstatements on our audit, if we identify any during the course of the audit, and then any uncorrected misstatements that may happen or be determined throughout the course of the financial statements before forming our opinion on those financial statements. As I mentioned, we've set materiality at 17 million for the current year. This is based off of the 2024 final numbers, and as we get into conducting the 2025 audit, we'll ensure that that number is appropriate based off of the final results that we would receive from management for 2025. It's based off of total expenses, as it has been in the past, and it does fall within the acceptable benchmarks that are provided underneath the auditing standards when using such numbers. There are involvement of specialists, mainly with regards to the obligations for employee future benefits. Management has specialists that help them determine those numbers, and we in turn would use specialists to ensure that that we agree with those numbers. So the group auditing standard in the current year has slightly changed. It's not a big change that will see management see a whole lot different from year to year from an audit perspective, but it changes the guidelines with regards to how we scope things in and out, with regards to where we put our focus. And so it calls for essentially a lot more documentation within our files with regards to how we are forming the decisions that we're forming. So breakdown here on this slide with regards to the percentage of assets and expenses and revenues which fall under, get scoped in with regards to the standard for HRM. So you can see HRM by itself on a non-consolidated basis would be the balances that would be subject to testing would be 53% of the total assets, 82% of the total expenses, and 82% of the total revenues. The Water Commission would also be a significant component due to its size, would make up 46% of the total assets, 14% of the total expenditures, and 14% of the total revenues. Halifax Regional Water Commission is audited by Grant Thornton here in Halifax, and so we would communicate with them with regards to set instructions as to our risk assessment, their risk assessment, and the procedures that we would like them to carry out on our behalf, and they would formally communicate to us once those procedures are completed and would help us form our opinion on the financial statements. The agency's boards and commissions do not get scoped in based off of their individual size and their the significance to which they play in the total assets, expenses, and revenues. However, there are individual audits conducted at all of those agencies, boards, and commissions. So as I mentioned, with regards to component auditors being the auditor of Halifax Regional Water Commission, we would have formal in writing communication as well as meetings with those component auditors to ensure that they're carrying out their audit in conjunction with ours and how we would ask them to do so. And we would also perform a review of their file once their audit file when they're complete, to ensure that that work meets the standards that we wish it to be conducted at as well. As I mentioned, one significant risk, which is same as what it was last year, being the management override of controls. Management is in a unique position to perpetrate fraud and override controls should they ever wish to do so. And so therefore, because of that unique position, it is a significant risk in all the audits that we conduct. The nature of our testing around that presumed significant risk is that we would do a testing of journal entries throughout the period to make sure that those are able to be substantiated and appropriate. We would perform a retrospective review of all the estimates in the financial statements, so we'd have a look back as to what those estimates were last year, the change year over year, and the reasons why. And then any significant or unusual transactions throughout the year, We would evaluate the business rationale for those and conduct necessary review on anything that came to light. Our key milestones and deliverables. Obviously, currently we're in our planning and risk assessment phase, where we have discussions with management based off of things that happen throughout the year, make sure that we reassess risks and plan appropriately for those. We'll further do more risk assessment and field work between now and July to make sure that we conduct the necessary testing that we need to carry out, including a review of controls within the organization and processes to make sure that our procedures are designed appropriately. And then in July and August, be able to present on the financial statements and the results of our audit to this committee, and ultimately issue our audit report once we're ready to do so. Audit quality is a significant focus with us. There's a link for the committee members to our transparency report, should you wish to read. And it's a continuous focus within the organization with regards to always improving audit quality in line with the system of quality management that we have in place, which follows the Canadian standards for the system of quality management. A few highlights in the appendix just for the committee. CPAB is the Canadian Public Accountability Board. It regulates and reviews public accounting firms throughout the country, and their audit quality reports are public, and so the links to those are here should the committee wish to review. The new and upcoming standards, as I mentioned, CAS 600 is the group auditing standard, which is not new but has changed in the current year, and therefore we are abiding by those changes. There's two upcoming in the following year. One's around communications with those charged with governance, so similar to today, as well as the actual standard around forming an audit opinion. So those changes are upcoming next year. This slide just further links for the committee and management should there be a desire to review further information around audit, around governance or audit committees. Some of it's around financial statement standards. And the last one I'll talk about is just the use of expanding audit technology within our audit. We continue to invest heavily within the use of technology and the benefits it can provide us from an audit perspective. And most of the items listed here are pieces of technology that we would use to help automate and streamline our audit process. That's it. I'll turn it back over to the chair. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jain. I see no names on the list, but would a member of council like to put the motion on the floor and we'll have the discussion? Or if there are any questions for Mr. Jain. Councillor St. Amand.
Put the motion on the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair. That the Audit Committee approve the attached audit planning report for the year-end audit of HRM's consolidated financial statements, general rate surplus statements, and miscellaneous trust funds statements as prepared by the municipal auditor, KPMG.
And a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Gillis. Thank you very much. Councillor St. Amand.
The only specific question that I had that popped into mind was you referred to the periodic testing of transactions just to ensure that there's validation as the year goes on. What are the points of access to that data on an ongoing basis? How real time do you get to perform such testing so that it's relatively current and top of mind when you're looking at the details of a transaction that you're investigating?
Thank you. Most of our testing is done at, I would say, two different periods during the year, which are generally at the end of the year. Right. So we would conduct an interim visit where we're go through some testing of actual transactions. A lot of it is to make sure that we do, a lot of the work we do during the interim visit, is to make sure that our understanding of processes hasn't changed, or if it has changed, then how our testing needs to adapt to that. And then at year end, once management has closed all the financial records off and we're at a point where we can start our audit, that's when the bulk of our testing happens. And so it's within a 12-month period, but not necessarily as it's actually happening.
Right. And the direction of where you wind up investigating those types of things. I mean, you did refer to some of the technology that you're using in order to identify areas that should be examined further. Are there specific areas, common transactions that would ordinarily be subject to review, or is it kind of all across business units, regardless of the dollar figure, in order to ensure that there's consistency across the board?
So I think our testing areas are based off of a lot of different factors, but at a high level, it's really a quantitative and qualitative analysis of where the risks are within your financial statements. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the more transactions, the higher dollar value items can lead to a better chance of a risk of material misstatement within the statements. And so we would conduct our review based off of those quantitative and qualitative factors. There's also technology that we use that would run some of the transactions through a set of tests, is the easiest way to say it. Yeah. And depending on the results of that review, it could indicate higher or lower risk transactions that we then investigate further. But it does take a wholesome view, and at the end of the day, we also need to step back and make sure that our testing has covered all areas of the financial statements to the point that we can put the audit opinion on it that we do, that says that the financial statements are not materially misstated.
And that would commonly look at a combination of both routine and recurring transactions as well as one-time transactions?
Yes, absolutely. So it would look at the nature of all transactions. One-time transactions, we can also, one of the things we highlighted in the planning report was unusual or significant transactions. So if it's a one-time, the questions usually with management are, well, why is this one-time transaction happening? And then we decide whether we need to delve in further as to looking at audit evidence around that transaction. But yes, it would cover all transactions at the end of the day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Member Lawal.
Yeah, I see that KPMG has been the auditors for HRM for a while. How does the firm ensure that, in spite of the longevity of the relationship, that audit independence is maintained during the audit?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that we do that. One is we continually assess to make sure that there's various checks and balances from an independence perspective that we need to follow as your auditors. So to make sure that not only it's within auditing services that we may perform, but any other type of service that we might be engaged to do so. So there are various things that we need to do internally to make sure that we're always independent and that we're not conducting any work that could impair our independence. The other thing is that although we've been auditors for a long period of time, this would be my first year as your audit partner. So we have rotation rules within the firm that make sure that no one person at a partner level can be the signing partner of the financial statements for longer than a standard set of years. And so last year, I would have shadowed our partner at the time, which is Carrie Blair. Carrie had been the partner on it for a while, and this year I'm taking over from Carrie. So that check and balance is part of making sure that someone doesn't get to a point where they could potentially be not independent, and so we do follow those processes quite closely and take them quite seriously.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if HRM's deteriorating assets are reflected in the audit in any way. I'm thinking about our roads, and not only are we sort of got a bit of a deteriorating asset, but we also are building up debts in the future that we have to, to maintain and improve the assets. So is that within scope or outside the scope of your audit?
I would say partially. And what I mean by that is we make sure that the asset values that are recorded in your financial statements follow the accounting standards. And our audit opinion is to ensure that happens. How we would do that with regards to particular assets would be discussions with management or indications of things that we are seeing in the environment in totality, to say, is there a reason to believe that a particular asset is impaired from a value perspective and it doesn't carry the value that it has on the statements or on the books and records of the municipality. So our review is to ensure that we have those discussions with management, and when there are indicators of impairment, make sure that we have proof that they're either they're valued appropriately, or that there's no reason to take some type of impairment on a particular asset. It's all in the realm as well with materiality, so you need to that comes into play in the consideration. So if, let's say, a particular road, just take one stretch of road, it may have some damage that would go under regular repairs and maintenance that management would conduct. It would have to be you'd have, from a totality perspective of looking at the value of a particular road, as you mentioned, wouldn't become material, but it has to look at the assets in general and the assets in total value.
So how would we see if we're building up an unsustainable infrastructure debt in terms of maintenance?
Well, I think that's probably a better question for management, but it's from our perspective of the audit. I'd go back to what I just said, is where we would have discussions with management with regards to the total value of the assets and whether or not there's indications of significant impairment within those assets.
Okay, thank you.
Our CFO has a comment to add as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jerry Blackwood, CFO. Yes, and Paul is correct. I think, Councillor, what you're asking is more staff would be something that staff would have to do. That's more around asset management.
Okay.
Yeah, and more of state of our assets and state of good repair, and identifying risks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. I see no further names on the list. We'll call for the question. Thank you. Dorothy, are we voting by show of hands? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. James. So our next item is item number 6, excuse me, which is in-camera minutes. Go in camera to approve the minutes. Would someone like to bring that forward then? Councillor Hensby?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Hensby. Is there a seconder? Oh, Councillor Cleary? Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you. Nay? Motion is carried. The date of our next meeting is to be determined, and so we would ask for an adjournment. Thank you very much. At 10:26. So we'll just take, it says, a 5-minute break to allow for a technical reset of the voting system prior to the beginning of the Audit and Finance meeting. So we'll just have 5 minutes, and then, so it looks like it is 10:30, so 10:35, we'll come back. Thank you. Well, it looks like we're all here that's going to be here. Dorothy, are we ready? Great. So I'll call to order the meeting of the Audit and Finance Standing Committee of March 20th, March 24th, 2025 at 10 a.m. So call to order, and we'll say that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people, and the municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We would ask for approval of the minutes of February 18th, 2025. Councillor Cleary and St. Amand, thank you very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Approval of the order of business and the approval of additions and deletions. Madam Clerk Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office.
So we would ask for a motion to approve the order of business. Being seconded by Councillor Cleary. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Business rising out of the minutes, there are none. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. Notice of tabled matters, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
Correspondence was received for agenda item 10.3.1 and was circulated to the members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Petitions. Have there been any petitions?
No petitions received by the clerk's office, Chair.
Members of council, is any petitions? Nope. And so we move to 10.3, 10.3.1, James Brunn with the Orenda Canoe Club Funding Proposal 2025. Brunn and Mark Doyle and maybe Ben Fraser presenting. Good morning, gentlemen. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and then members of council may ask questions of clarification.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
I'd like to give James Braun's apologies. He can't make it today. I'm Ben Fraser, the Vice Commodore of the Canoe Club.
Mark Doyle, so newly elected Facilities Chair and very involved in growth and expansion of facilities.
I want to give a little bit of history of the club for those that aren't familiar. I know David Hensby is very familiar with the club, but some of you may not be. The club was founded in the late 70s. It's a canoe kayak sprint club based out of Lake Echo on the eastern shore. We had a storied success. Obviously, I wasn't here for it. I was born in Australia and I've only moved to Nova Scotia relatively recently. But the club's had 5 Olympic athletes that have been begun at the club and have gone on to compete at the Olympics. 3 times they've been the most successful club in Canada at sprint canoe kayaking. So it's a very storied history of developing high-performance athletes. But it's not just a high-performance sporting club. So over the summers, we run one of the largest summer camps on the eastern shore. We've got a very large group of kids that come in the summer that learn to swim, that learn to paddle, that learn sort of water safety at the club. We run an after-school program that looks after elementary school kids in the local district. So we've had a real history of working in the community for the last 50 years. But the club, when it was founded, was really just a boat shed on the shores of Lake Echo. And I think what the previous boards have realised was that for us to have more impact in the community, we need to be a larger facility. And so what we did was came in and proposed and planned development of the club to expand it to provide more facilities. So there's some pictures here of the current state of where the clubhouse is, and I hope that the screens that you have in front of you are large enough to see. But it really was about increasing the engagement. So what we've done is demolished sort of half the building and built a 2-story high clubhouse that's got expanded boat bays, a gym, changing rooms downstairs, and upstairs has a really large function room. And the real goal of that was to increase that engagement, because when you're just a small boat club, you aren't able to have reasons for people to come down and spend time at the club. So what we've been able to do, obviously COVID was pretty tough on all of these sorts of organisations. And so over the last few years, we've really rebuilt the paddling programs. We've got the summer program expanded. We've got the spring and fall paddling expanded. But in spite of the fact that we've been a construction site, we ran a craft fair last year downstairs in the new build. We had our clubhouse used for the AGM, so we had the AGM on site, and we brought all the families in to run the AGM. We had Tim Houston and the local MLA, Twyla Gross, in last year to meet the paddlers, meet the coaches, and really, so we are leveraging the clubhouse that we have, and we've done a lot of work. But we haven't finished the project at this stage, and that's what brings us to you here today. I'll get Mark, who's the person responsible for the project management of the clubhouse development, to give you a bit more details.
So to speak about how I got involved and in my role within the club is I've got 18 years of experience in industrial project management, which has included a lot of renovation and new construction projects, as well as manufacturing equipment and automation. So being able to support the club in a role that helps this construction project and get this across the finish line is something that we're pretty proud to do, and pretty proud to get this across the finish line. If you want to go to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about our journey of where we are. So phase 1 and phase 2 and kind of the financial path that we've been on and where we are today with this project. So initial funding came through this phase 1 in 2017, 2018 of $600,000. So that grant was well used. And so in looking at some of the pictures that you just saw, the major expansion of the club, the 13,000 square foot addition that went on, it was done with that $600,000 for the majority. So if you think about that, this 13,000 square foot addition was done at about $62 a square foot. And that's in huge thanks to the partnerships and support from the community and the board that came before us. Those board members and the relationships that they built in the community and what people believed in for Orenda really was what got this place built for such a low amount of money. So we think about, what renovation projects and construction projects cost today. We're into general renovation projects around the $200 a square foot mark, and then new construction projects around $300, $350, maybe more, depending on criteria. But so to get this done just before COVID at this $62 number is a phenomenal achievement and a testament to the belief the community has. So then roll into phase 2. So to go back and get money to finish this project that we've now got the overall construction, the building envelope constructed. That's when COVID hits, and that's when everybody sees kind of the same story. Everybody's got experienced sort of the same thing, that all of a sudden you can't get people. There's nobody available. Things have kind of come to a screeching halt. And then when things start moving again, costs have gone up so significantly that to try and recapture what your plan was or what you were going to do with the budget and the scope of work that you had is just, it's impossible. So that leads us to, in part 2 of phase 2 is that grant was based on a reimbursement grant. So you think of that quantity of money, a not-for-profit, a small canoe club on the Eastern Shore, that's not a lot of money. That's not the kind of money that's going to be available in your bank account to go buy and do this work and finish this major construction and then go back and submit receipts. So it created some challenges in cash flow and timing, along with the constraints of COVID and inflation that happened at the exact same time, which leads us to today. So talking about what we've got proposed for phase 3, knowing that in phase 2, there's still grant money on the table. So we've asked for an extension that we may still be able to capture some of that with the new influx of capital coming in, if new grants were to come in and support us with that. There's $150,000 of unattainable grants there that are existing today. So I'll talk about, if you want to flip to the next one, I'll talk a little bit about phase 3 and about the construction project that we have that's in front of us. So what we're proposing is an additional $81 a square foot to finish the space that we've built, which would put this entire project cost at $143 a square foot. So $143 a square foot in total, including what's gone on through COVID, pushes us into the completion of a 15,400 square foot building that is unique to the Eastern Shore, that allows us to become a hub and allows us to finish and take to market this project that is so close to being there. So this includes a banquet hall that's overlooking the beautiful and pristine Lake Echo. It includes the facilities for the canoe club itself that will allow us to further grow and expand the programs and enrollment that we're offering today. So the goal here is to take that we're so close to this finish line and to try and find the support to get us across the finish line to allow us to take this to market and get the community involved in the way that we'd like to. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah. What I wanted to sort of focus on, I guess, is like there's a lot of demand for this clubhouse. We've had Halifax Partnership reaching out, wanting to use get people in to use the commercial kitchen. We've got a whole heap of community partners that are wanting to work with us to utilise the space. So on the bottom of the screen, you'll see the We Paddle program, which I'm super excited about. We ran this last year as a pilot program for Canoe Kayak Canada to increase enrolment in paddling from an underserved community. So east and north Preston, the African Nova Scotian communities of Cherrybrook, Loon Lake, that whole area is very close to the club. And so what we did was bring them into the club and had some funding for paddling programs for them. We're really working with the East Preston Daycare. We had them come down over the summer for a summer fun day, like a day on the lake. And really it is about utilising this facility for doing that. We've had people wanting to have their weddings at the clubhouse. We've had people wanting to utilise it as a yoga space. We've had a whole series of stuff. The club is expanding and doing all the things that we can to increase enrolment. We've got a dedicated board that's committed to making this club as successful as it can be and as big a part of the community as we can. And really what we're wanting to do is have this facility that can be utilised by that entire community. We've had to, unfortunately, this year increase the cost of paddling for the kids, and so the cost to the families is increased this summer. But in spite of that, because of the work we're doing to increase engagement with families in the community, we've seen more enrolment this year in March than we had for the last couple of years. So we've really had success in building the programs. We just need this facility finished so that we can maximise that impact.
I'll speak to you just for a second inside of some of the projections that are inside of the project plan as well. Today, we really rely on the programs which don't fulfill the financial burden and to operate the business, to operate the organization. So we rely on fundraising. We have a tremendous group of fundraisers that go to community. So relying on that and then other grants. So this is something that we really aim to reduce our dependency on grants and that we can self-sustain with ourselves in fundraising.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very
We
much.
welcome any questions you've got for us.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate you guys coming in today to make a presentation on Orenda Canoe Club. I can tell the committee here that Orenda's been had aspirations and plans to expand the building for a number of years now, and they were on their way there just before COVID hit. But as we've seen, the provincial funding they received at the time, it was a shame that the MLA of the day did not partner that money with other infrastructure funding opportunities, and he did it as a single contribution, I guess you could say, and we missed out on some federal and municipal possible funds that could have leveraged with that. But since that time, the federal government's come on board with some contributions, as you see, to help with the project, and I've been helping with my district funds whenever possible. So this is why the request is coming forward here to the municipality to see if we can help the canoe club finish its renovations to get itself up and running and to be probably more sustainable as a facility. We have a history of helping other canoe clubs in the past. We did the Minook Canoe Club for, I think it was $500,000 just recently for renovations and stuff, and there's some other canoe clubs we've been helping along the way over the years. So I'm hoping that we can take this request forward to staff and see if we can find some additional funding for them. I don't know if there's any money allocated from the surplus yet that we could possibly allocate, but I'd just like to move this request forward to staff for consideration.
Councillor Hensby, do you want to form that as a motion?
I think I just did, didn't I?
Did I hear a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gillis. Can we see the motion, Dorothy, do you think? Councillor Hensby, the motion as is written is that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee direct the CAO to provide a staff report to consider funding the Orenda Canoe Club for renovations. Does that satisfy what your request is?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And to the seconder, yes? Great. Thank you, Dorothy. I see no other names on the list. Call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. The next item on our agenda is public participation. We ask that speakers keep their comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. The clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete for all speakers. Any member of the public who is registered with the clerk's office on the matter will be given 5 minutes to address the topic. When I call your name, you may come to the microphone. After everyone on the list has been given opportunity to speak, we will call 3 times to ask if there are any additional speakers. So the first speaker on our list is someone I know well, Malila? Malila. And you know what? As long as we've known each other, I still can't pronounce your last name without messing it up. So, welcome.
For my remarks, I always start with, and again, my name is Mia Suokunautio. So good morning, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity. Again, I am Mia Suokunautio. I use she, her pronouns, and for the last 11 years, I've had my life's great honor and privilege to serve as the executive director for YWCA Halifax. So I've never presented to this committee before, so I don't even know what you like to hear or what you need. But I did want to talk about the Affordable Housing Development Program, and I wanted to do 2 things. One, I wanted to report back to you, and I wanted to talk about the future. So on the report back, last year, YWCA Halifax was very appreciative of HRM's contribution through the Affordable Housing Development Program for 3 of our housing projects. Today, I just wanted to speak really quickly about one of them, and that's the Mount Hope Village Special Planning Area. That was a $12 million acquisition that closed July 31st last year. And of that, HRM contributed $650,000. The remaining funds came overwhelmingly from CMHC and Housing Nova Scotia, and then we had, as per the funding requirements, we put in our own equity requirement of 5%, and that we were able to find a private investor to be able to put that funding in. The next part is around what's happening. Oh, and I wanted to talk about that $650,000. That with that we were able to purchase 22 2-bedroom houses that we are renting at $1,075 a month, including utilities, and 10 3-bedrooms. All of the people who are living in that housing, today there are 100 people living there, 52 of whom are children, and they all came from the by name list for homelessness for Halifax. I just looked, the numbers from last week on the BNL are there are 1,175 people who are actively homeless. So if you think being able to move 32 households is already a small drop in the bucket. The moving forward, what you have now before you, and I know my colleagues with HRM behind me will be presenting on the affordable housing development and making some recommendations. In that bucket, I know they won't be sharing the details, but I know that there's an application that we put in as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's another 148 units of housing, 2 and 3 bedrooms, brand new, of which it is a total $62 million project. We've already secured $45 million from the feds, and I had a conversation with the province on Friday that they're in for another 12. We have to come up with our 5% equity, so that's a little over $3 million. And it's 3.2 million, in fact. But what we know is the feds and the province have both said that HRM's contribution can count toward that 5% equity. So as a nonprofit, we don't sit on $3.2 million looking for ways to invest that. And HRM's contribution helps unlock all of that additional money. So HRM's contribution can potentially unlock another, I'm doing math in my mind, another $57 million. So it's a really, really significant contribution from HRM. We anticipate that in those 148 units of housing, at least 500 people will be housed. We've already been in conversations with the Friendship Center, with ISANS for refugee claimants who are unable to find housing. We've talked to the African Nova Scotian Justice Institute about folks who are leaving incarceration who no one will provide housing for or rents. And we continue to house teen families who are unable to access market housing. So that investment by HRM is a significant contribution. The last thing I'll just say, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the numbers and cents, is HRM's role. And I think that understanding your strategic place in investing in affordable housing is very, very significant. The feds in the province have very strict guidelines, and HRM is able to unlock significant amounts of money toward affordable housing. I do know that there was over $38 million in ask, and that the staff report will be recommending $5.2 million. That's a really important thing to consider around how much you can put in for more. So if you think about yourselves as a smaller contribution of the bigger pie, in future years, contemplate additional investments and all those projects that were ready to go and that are not being funded in this round. That's my time. Thanks.
Did you say that was your daughter? Your time, you were smart. Thank you. We don't see any names on the list for, Councillor Morris has a question of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in today and for all the work that you've been doing on this really important file. We've had some conversations a few years ago, and it sounds like you've accomplished an awful lot in the meantime. I wondered if you could say a little bit more about that gap that you spoke briefly about, all of the applications going in, and HRM is only able to fund 5.2 million. So what happens to those, or what do you see as what HRM can do about that huge gap?
So the question is around, where do you find money? I find money everywhere I possibly can. So I am literally looking for either capital contributions or cost reductions, any single place that I can find them. So whether that's property tax exemptions, whether that is fundraising, so I'll tell you the equity component that we need to raise that is still short here, the Anglican Diocese of Nova Scotia and PEI were the ones who have come forward and said that they'll cover that cost. They understand, and they are our partners in this. In the first one, it was a private company. It was Manulife Canada, actually, who were in town to meet with the Premier a few years ago, and I happened to pull them aside because they had funded another project at the Y. They said they're really into affordable housing in the States, and they haven't done anything in Canada. I said, I've got my first project for you. I'm meeting with potential private donors to try and fundraise. I'm looking for money anywhere, anytime, all the time. I literally dream about giving capital discussions, but that is a problem. that we are relying on charity and fundraising efforts to meet housing needs. And here's one of the reasons. People knew that Clayton had turned away the $20 million in provincial funding. What they didn't know was we were already deep into conversations that money will come to us instead. I love Clayton. They've been a great partner. Here's the difference. We will own it in perpetuity. We've been doing housing for 150 years. It's going to be affordable for 150 years. We also know our tenants. So we know that we can house 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. And when you invest in nonprofits to do this, who don't sit on a lot of equity, it's a really important piece of work to be able to do. That equity, we run on razor thin margins. People don't understand that our budget this year is $20 million. I have zero core funding, zero. Every single dollar, we have over 100 grants I have to fundraise. And so that whole machination is to be able to make things go. When there's a 5% equity requirement from CMHC and Housing Nova Scotia, I know them all, very few nonprofits are sitting on that kind of equity. And yet, if you invest that 5% equity into them, you'll get housing in perpetuity that's affordable. You get a landlord, for example, when Pam Glode from the Friendship Center said to me, I don't need to own it, but I need access. I said, okay, I'll give you 10 units right off the bat. And of those 10 units in the current phase, 8 of them are Jordan's Principal Housing of children who are at imminent risk of apprehension into child welfare. This housing is interrupting multi-generational cycles of child welfare involvement. I could talk about this forever. I'm clearly passionate about it. I love it. I love it. But HRM, there's one phrase that I have heard that drives me bananas. The feds have the money, the province has the mandate, the city has the problem. Guess what? It's all our problem, it's all our mandate, and we all have resources to bring to the table.
Well, I just love your passion. I hope you can keep it up, and agreed. We all need to do what we can, as much as we can, more than we're doing on this. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much. I see no other questions on the list, so maybe, Mila, I might ask, is there an opportunity to partner with a like-minded nonprofit to use their equity if they should have it?
Your question is, my name is Mia, by the way.
So,
is there an opportunity to partner with a like-minded nonprofit around equity? So yes and no. That relies on organizations having that equity to invest. So that's why the Anglicans, for example, they are a nonprofit as well. So they're putting that funds in. You have to find the right kind of partner as well to bring that equity to the table. That equity component is something that we're working on in a very different model with our Downtown Dartmouth project as well.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you coming here today. Thank you. Our next speaker is John Stevens from Eastern Passage. Welcome, Mr. Stevens. You have 5 minutes, and our clerk will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and then when time is up.
There we go. Thank you. I am from Eastern Passage, which is, God's country, but I'm actually representing my organization today, the Archdiocese of Halifax-Yarmouth, who also represents God in one capacity or another. I'm glad to be with you today, and I was really encouraged to hear the presentation before mine because it talked about the gap and the need for communities to band together and solve the housing crisis that we're all facing. And so I wanted to bring to your attention today a project that's not going to get funding in the next staff report that you're going to hear, and just so you know the kind of things that are out there and the kind of struggles that people are having to be able to help solve this crisis. So our application was for something called Dublin Street Apartments. It was going to happen on the corner of North and Dublin at the current location of St. Teresa's Church, across the street from Oxford School, for those of you who are not familiar. And our plan there was to construct a 4 to 5 story development with up to 39 units, 100% affordable housing, every single unit below market rate. The project supports a variety of households because it has studios, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units with mixed income approach, so the rents would be 40, 60, and 80% of the median market rate. So 100% affordable housing at an average rent of 64% of the median rate. a commitment to maintain that affordability, like the previous presenter said, for a nonprofit that's been in the city for a while, you know. And I think our first mass was said in the 1600s. We've been incorporated since 1830. We're not going anywhere. We have a 50-year lifetime on this project and would really like to see it go forward. It exceeds all the minimum accessibility and energy standards to provide high quality, long lasting and dignified housing for all residents. 20% of the units are accessible and all others are adaptable. It's net zero and reduces energy consumption and greenhouse gases by 25% relative to the building code standards. In summary, the project is really unmatched and unique in terms of its affordability, accessibility, and sustainability, and really meets, I think, with Council's priorities. So the Affordable Housing Grant Program, we really need it, though, to get started. To meet those affordability targets requires all levels of funding from government, from private corporations, from nonprofits like ourselves. And so in order to meet those affordability targets, we're really dependent on this kind of stuff from the Affordable Grant Project. So I guess the thing that we would say is that would impact our ability to not receive this funding, would impact our ability to provide that 100%, you know, affordable housing, and we really are committed to that, and we want to be able to do that. And so today you're going to hear a report from staff. This project isn't on that report, but I wanted to bring it to your attention to know the kinds of things, because to your question, Madam Chair, earlier, what are the kinds of things that are blocks or not happening, or what can be done? I think this is a good example of that. It's instructive for us all. I'm not here to disparage or compete one nonprofit against the other. I think we all have something to do here. We all have something to contribute to the community. So if you have the ability to have a motion, if you wanted to have some discussion on it, I might recommend that the Audit and Finance Committee allocate additional $500,000 from the Density Bonus Reserve or the Housing Accelerator Fund to the Dublin Street Apartments project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. We have a question from Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for coming in today. I was curious about all the projects that didn't get funded, and sometimes it's hard to know about those. So thank you for being here today. Can you tell us what you heard about why you didn't make the cut, and also maybe a little bit more about who your target group was for the housing?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we saw the same report that you're receiving today, so we don't know the reasons for decline other than there was a large number of requests for a small pot of money, which is, I mean, understandable, and you have to prioritize things. I mean, if you look at some of the criteria in the report for what's there in terms of affordability, in terms of energy efficiency and so on, I think this project meets it, but probably all projects are trying to meet that, or I hope they are. In terms of our targets, because we have a variety of units, we're able to actually offer a variety of helps. So for example, not many people are doing 3 and 4 bedroom units. And so when we talk to people, you know, who represent and work with newcomers, they're like, this is great because we have people who are, you know, a newcomer family of 6 or 8 people, but they're jammed into a 2-bedroom apartment. We talk about seniors on single incomes. We don't have one particular audience, but we think the variety and diversity of the types of housing that we're putting in this project actually serves many different audiences all at once.
Okay, so you really didn't have any conversations or heard any more about what happened?
We had a few follow-ups with staff, but it was really just, you know.
A lot of asks and not a lot of money.
It's in the report, right?
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morse. I see no further questions for you on the list, so thank you very much, Mr. Stevens, for coming. Thank you. So that concludes the list of registered speakers, so we'll call 3 times. Is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? For the second time, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? Last chance for the third and final time if there is anyone from the gallery that would like to speak. Seeing none, we will move on then to information items brought forward. There are none. And now we move to the report section of our agenda, 13.1.1, the 24-25 Affordable Housing Grant Program Funding Administrative Order 2020-008 ADM, respecting grants for affordable housing. And we do have a presentation, and welcome Dave Patterson, Principal Planner with our Housing Accelerator program.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Today we are presenting our recommendation to allocate funding to the 2024-2025 Affordable Housing Grant Program. My name is Dave Patterson, Principal Planner with the Housing Accelerator Fund team in Regional Planning. I'm joined today with members of the planning team who worked on the grant program intake, Kelsey Warren, Hannah Peters, and Alex Wilson. As background, the grant program was created in 2021 to support the nonprofit housing sector by dispersing funds collected through the bonus zoning program. Bonus zoning collects funds from new private sector developments in the regional center. The grant program is a mechanism to distribute these funds to support affordable housing projects led by nonprofits and charitable organizations. The program supports new construction projects, rehabilitation and repairs, acquisitions, and pre-development studies to support affordable housing. The grant program round that we're talking about today is the fourth intake of the program. Between the intakes of 2021, 2022, and 2023, the fund has supported in total 20 projects, and the breakdown is shown on your screen here. Overall, we have supported through the program 382 units of affordable housing in the municipality, and there are further details on the recipient projects on our website. In terms of the funding history, the table shows here the significant growth of the program, especially over the last 2 years. The column on the right being the recommendation we are considering today. In accordance with the HRM Charter, when the program administers funding through the Regional Center Bonus Zoning Reserve, so that first row on your table, those funds may only support projects also located in the Regional Center. In previous years, we've also used operating funds from the P&D budget, which has allowed the program to support projects outside the regional center. And in 2023 to 2024, municipality used $6.3 million in the Housing Accelerator Fund funds to cover the program. This represented both a significant bump in the scale and size of the program and a chance to allow the bonus zoning reserve to continue to increase for longer term sustainability of that reserve. This year, we are recommending a combination of funding funding sources with bonus zoning for projects in the regional center and the half fund for projects outside the regional center. Just for the familiarity of the committee, in terms of the HGP process overall, and this is all set out through our administrative order, the process has an intake from September 1st to December 1st each year. And that intake includes pre-application meetings with applicants. From December to February, staff review those applications. Our review team comprises staff from a number of departments, including housing and homelessness, finance, sustainability, and diversity and inclusion. We also meet with members of the Housing and Homelessness Partnership and other funders who are looking at those same projects from their own funding programs. So we meet with staff from the province, CMHC, and the Center for Housing Transformation. Staff evaluate the application using the prioritization guidance in the administrative order, which I'll get to on a future slide. And that evaluation was completed in February. We're at this point where we are coming both to council and the CAO with a recommendation here. So we're here today and to regional council with a funding recommendation to allocate funds to the program. And according to, as laid out in the administrative order, the CAO has authority over the awards. And we are recommending to the CAO the awards that is consistent with today's recommendation for funding. Assuming this funding is allocated, staff would finalize the awards and contribution agreements would follow in the coming weeks. The prioritization criteria for the grant program include whether a project has access to additional funding, and essentially in all cases, our grant layers on top of funding from other funders, as you heard about today, earlier in public participation. There's a prioritization for the experience and capacity of applicants, a prioritization for the depth of affordability with consideration for the target populations that the housing would serve. And there's also prioritization criteria around enhancing accessibility and improving energy efficiency. So at this point, I'm going to bring you through some of the intake and the awards that we're looking to fund. We received in total 29 applications, as you know, and that total funding request came in at $38.5 million. Those funding requests totaled $24.4 million inside the regional center and $14.1 million outside the regional center. Of these, as summarized on the table before you, we have 10 projects with awards totaling $5.28 million. This year's intake of the program, we're supporting a large volume of new construction projects with a total here of 187 units of new construction supported. And in all cases, those projects are projected to have building permits achieved by October 2026, which is a significant date because that timeline also aligns with our commitment under the Housing Accelerator Fund. And the Housing Accelerator Fund has a target to achieve 333 units of affordable housing in that timeline. So these 187 units layer on top of 205 units previously supported to help achieve that goal, along with funding from other levels of government, of course. So I'll briefly run through the successful projects. We have 10 of them, so I'll run pretty quick. Affirmative Ventures project on Karen Drive is for 30 units of affordable housing, serving individuals living with mental health challenges. The project has deeply affordable units renting at 50 to 63% of average market rents. Akuma Holdings new construction project in Lake Loon is for 8 units of affordable housing townhouses at 67 to 99% average market rent, with housing for African Nova Scotian families. The YWCA Mount Hope Village is, as you heard about earlier, a 4-phase development. The first phase was supported by last year's program, and this award relates to phases 2 and 3 of the project, which includes 59 affordable housing units rented at 78 to 94% of average market rents within a mixed market development. And these phases are looking to complete in 2026. There is a forthcoming phase 4, which is looking to complete in 2027. Shelter Nova Scotia is a project on Nora Bernard Street in North End, Halifax. This is for 22 units of housing as part of a multi-service and drop-in center supporting adults experiencing homelessness. These units would be furnished bachelor units, and they would rent at deeply affordable levels geared to income. The Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center's project on Wise Road is an 8-unit building with housing for Indigenous youth exiting foster care and elders, and rents, again, are deeply affordable with rents geared to income. Another project by the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center is the conversion of the Marine House from office to residential. As you may be aware, the HAF team has been looking at options for supporting office to residential conversions, and this is really the first project that we've ever seen of that kind of project looking at converting for affordable housing. This project is supported by the Federal Lands Initiative, and there's strong support from all levels of government for this project. And the intent here is to convert the building for 60 units of housing supporting Indigenous community members, also with deeply affordable rents geared to income. That concludes the new construction projects supported under the program this year. There are also 4 repair projects for support with awards. A significant rehabilitation is for Adsum House for a site in North End, Halifax, and this would support the repair of 4 units of housing which are currently uninhabitable. The housing is for mother-led families experiencing housing insecurity with deeply affordable rents geared to income. And finally, the program is supporting 3 repairs projects by Kabuki, Longhouse, and Vihera housing cooperatives for siding replacement, mold remediation, heat pumps, and electrical upgrades. So finally, moving into the financial implications and the recommendations before the committee. So that density bonusing reserve, it has an average annual remittance over the last 4 years of $1.95 million, so just under $2 million. Available right now is $6.75 million. The recommended allocation from this fund is $4.65 million, and this does leave $2.1 million in the reserve, which can be used to fund future rounds of the program. And our intent is to keep working with applicants, including the unsuccessful applicants, to come back at a future round with those projects. And I'll just note the average annual remittance that is related to development activity. So this $2 million relates to the development activity in the regional center thus far. It's hard to predict in the future what the kind of remittance we'll see is. And finally, the half funding. That half funding is also going towards other projects in our action plan and associated capital projects. And this funding balances with those and allows us to keep fulfilling our half action plan. In conclusion, I have on the screen the recommendation in the report, and I'd be happy to field any questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. We've got some questions of clarification. First, we have Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the risk consideration, you do note that while the average density bonus reserved has been just in the order of $2 million for the past several years, this year was a much bigger year in terms of total number of applications, but also the value of the applications. So in transferring more out and leaving a smaller pot in there, is there not a concern that all of the projects that may wind up coming forward for what remains will similarly be a little on the larger side and put pressure on what reserve we have remaining?
Yes, thank you for the question through the chair. It is certainly a consideration that we have. I mean, if we bring in $2 million per year, give or take, we really don't want that reserve to run down to zero.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is a consideration that we will. It's always going to be hard to fulfill the need, and so we're always looking for those projects that we can support other levels of government to fund. Yeah, and we expect the projects will remain large. We always do support a diversity of projects, so we do have the smaller repairs as well as the larger new construction projects, which do run into the larger amounts.
Right.
So yeah, we are always aware, and we are looking to come back to this committee and to council with updates to the program, and part of that's going to be looking at what tools do we have to maintain the financial sustainability of this program.
All right. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very exciting to see this coming forward and all the demand for it. I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. When this review comes forward that you just mentioned to council, I guess I'm wondering how much is earned per year that going into this density bonus reserve, because that has to do with the financial sustainability, and we're seeing the demand going up and up. So will that be part of the review coming to council? And also, we did approve a suburban density bonusing plan a couple years ago, and I'm wondering how much money is in that. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how large these funds are and what more we can do.
Sure, thank you for that question. Another key detail, and this relates to I think this overall question, is beginning 1 year ago, just over 1 year ago in January 2024, we moved from collecting bonus zoning reserve at building permit stage to at occupancy. So we have a bit of a blip, and that's a little bit in response to feedback from the development community around needing to have their financing in order to that point. In terms of the Suburban Housing Accelerator Fund in the suburban area, my understanding is that there has not been any input into that program as yet, because none of those projects have reached that point of occupancy. So it could be some time. I don't really want to predict when that would be, but we're not at the point yet of having collected funds into that reserve.
Okay, so this report that's coming forward, the review that you mentioned, when it comes forward, it's going to talk about how much we expect to be getting at occupancy from these buildings. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, it would look at all the sources, bonus zoning, which is really contingent on that development activity and how development moves forward. But also, are there other funding sources that we can draw on, whether that's Housing Accelerator Fund in the short term?
Okay, because we do have $80 million in Housing Accelerator Fund, and so we may be able to draw on more of that to fund some of these affordable housing grants.
Yeah, so thank you. Yes, we have, it's an $80 million fund, and that's distributed in four installments. We've received those first 2 installments, and so long as we hit our commitments by October 2025, we would get our 3rd installment, and then the 4th installment, October, November 2027.
Okay, so that'll all be part of the review as well. Do I have time for a few more questions, or am I out of time?
Actually, our CFO has a comment
Okay.
to add to it, but you're not out of time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good questions by Councillor Morrison. I think one of the things that we really need to be cognizant of, and because as we continue to support more affordable housing projects, and every week in the news you read about the nonprofit sector and being very active in the affordable housing market, whether it's federally funded government projects or just straight acquisitions. So just last week, Marine House in Dartmouth is going to be taken over by the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. So when we're doing investments in affordable housing here, we also have our nonprofit grants program, which has a 50% tax relief on affordable housing as well. So they almost go hand in hand. We help fund up new projects, but then those new projects will be eligible then for our tax relief program as well. So I think it's important when we bring forward like the funding pieces on the affordable housing grants, we need to make council aware that these projects will be eligible for funding at 50% under our nonprofit tax relief program as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Good point. And
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Would you like 2 minutes back?
I did have a couple more questions, if that's okay. I wondered, in terms of when you're evaluating the applicants, how do you look at the experience and capacity of the applicants? Because we do have a lot of, these are fairly new grants, and there's a lot of new interest in doing this type of work in housing. So how do you evaluate that? And also, do you look at how much each project can leverage in other funds? Is that part of the criteria?
Thank you so much for that question. That's exactly what we do. I mentioned working with other levels of government and other funders. And so essentially, our grants committee is the folks from the province and CMHC that are also evaluating these projects. And so we do discuss, what does this project need to make it go? And it's really through that conversation that we also assess capacity, because really the amount of knowledge and the amount of staffing capacity for the provincial and CMHC programs and their ability to sort of follow through on projects is a bit stronger than what we have. So we really do rely on their insights into projects to understand the capacity. So we have our initial look at the pro forma and highlight things with our finance folks, but we're also getting a lot of in-depth knowledge from our partners.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the report that's coming to council on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a point of a question of clarification here. I'm going through the awards summary, and I see Longhouse Housing Corp. 23-4. I know it's small in the grand scheme of things for heat pump conversion. Do we exhaust all other options for funding for that, like through the provincial government and stuff? I know Efficiency One has all kinds of grants and stuff. So do we exhaust all that first?
Thank you for that question. We do, we don't ourselves, but we do look at the applicant, and we do require applicants to have other funding in place. And in some cases, it's those other programs. Some cases, it's the reserve of the applicants themselves. But my recollection of that project is we're actually funding about half of the overall cost, not the entirety of the project. So we are looking for other funders or the groups themselves to come forward with the remaining that's needed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gillis. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you've already spoken to the sustainability of the grant funding, the number of apps, the size of each application, et cetera. But speak to the urgency and the need that's out there. So how many units of affordable housing do we think are needed in Halifax right now? The urgency of getting those built, and does that play into Councillor Morse kind of hinted at it, but does that play into the applications that come in and who you prioritize based on, I hate the term shovel ready, but who's closer to getting a unit built than another is? Because Mr. Stevens spoke to the one that's in my district at the Catholic Church. And does something like, it's further away from getting completed versus closer to getting completed, like, if they could construct this year to what Ms. Swakanadio talked about earlier, like, they've done this before, they're moving ahead, they've got stuff that could be built very soon. So does all that play into how you rate these applications and which ones you recommend for funding?
Thank you for that question, Councillor, through the chair to you. So first of all, in terms of, you asked about the overall need for affordable housing, and I don't want to hazard kind of the numbers right now. I know in public participation, there's, we brought up the speaker brought up the by name list. The need is significant, and this is, by no means are our targets in half or our what we're funding in this program the entirety of the solution. We're really trying to leverage those projects. So I don't want to speak towards the overall affordable housing need.
Well, without putting words in your mouth, I know 8 years ago, this council endorsed a plan for affordable housing that said we needed 5,000 units.
Yeah.
I can't imagine we need fewer than those now, and I'm not sure how many have been built. But in terms of I guess, do you also have, looking to the Housing Accelerator Fund, are there goals? Like, are there numbers that we have to hit or want to hit that speak to that need?
Yes, the Housing Accelerator Fund does have an overall permit target. So that overall permit target is 15,000 permits, and of those, the number is actually 333. So it's not actually the need, but our half action plan.
333 that are affordable.
That are affordable units. That's
out of 15,000. That's a very small percentage.
It's 2.15%. Yeah. So, in no way are we saying that is sufficient. We're saying that that's a target that we have to fulfill as part of that plan. In terms of what we have achieved through the program so far, this year, 187 new units are supported. In the previous 3 years of the program, we supported a total of 205 new construction, among acquisitions as well, and there's also repairs. So that gives you a sense of the grant program itself is overall supporting just under 400 units in these years. But the overall look at affordable housing, we're also looking at projects by other sectors and supported by other governments. So that's not the entirety of the affordable housing output.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Cleary. No other names on the list for questions of clarification. Is a member of the committee ready to put the motion on the floor? Councillor Cleary and Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking for my webpage here that has the motion. Here we go. So I move that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council 1 direct the Chief Administrative Officer to allocate $4,652,318 from the Density Bonus Reserve Q640 to fund the Affordable Housing Grant Program, and 2, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to allocate $623,400 from the Housing Accelerator Fund, HAF, to fund awards under the Affordable Housing Grant Program.
Second.
Thank you. And
By
just
Councillor Morse.
so I'll get into a bit of still questions, but I guess more along the line of debate. Specifically, first of all, let me state that I support the projects that are on the list, absolutely. And I don't know of all the applications that have come in, but I probably would support them all if we had, I think it was $38 million that was requested to support them all, or that was the amount of projects. And so looking at all of those, I want to specifically now just ask about the Archdiocese and the St. Teresa's one, because the presenter was here, Mr. John Stevens, asking about those. So in terms of that application and its readiness, and I'll have conversations with Mr. Stevens as I did last week again, but can you speak to, I believe when I looked it up, and your colleagues behind you, I'm not sure if any of them want to chime in on this, but I looked at the zoning, and it's an IE zoning, which is institutional employment. And the minimum planning requirements from the provincial government that says we have to allow residents on all zones, with a few exceptions, that hasn't passed yet. So that's still in consultation, coming back to council, I think, very soon. And so for a property like that, are they ready? Like, does the zoning allow for them to build housing on it right now?
Thank you. In terms of the minimum planning requirements, I might defer to others to speak to that a little bit as well. I think I see someone coming up. But the current zoning is institutionally zoned in center plan, and that does permit residential in conjunction with an institutional use.
In conjunction with?
Yes, and also through the landmark buildings policy in center plan as well. Our understanding of the application is that that's not within the current scope of what they're looking at.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Aaron Murnahan, Manager, Housing Accelerator Program. We can't speak in much detail to the land use ins and outs of this particular project. We'd be happy to speak with the applicant and put them in touch with either Development Services or our Planning Applications team and speak more of that. But certainly there is opportunities either under the landmark building policy, as Dave mentioned, or even the possibility of a heritage development agreement.
So there are paths forward.
There would certainly be paths forward for varying levels of density on the site.
Okay. So it's kind of like not a no, but it's one of those cases of, given the volume of applications that come in, the ones that are closest to being ready, you're not saying that it's not a good idea, you're just saying that there are better ideas at the moment.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the big challenge here is minimizing risk as much as possible with applications and trying to get permits out the door as quickly as possible to meet our Housing Accelerator Fund commitments. So having such a small pot of money, as it's been said a couple times, and so many great applications is a huge challenge to pick winners, quote unquote. But one of our big commitments is really trying to get new construction happening as quickly as possible, because half funding has to be expended before October of 2027. And in order for permits to count toward our contribution agreement, they have to be issued before October 2026. And of the 6.5 million,
so just next year.
That's correct, 19 months out. So the big challenge is, again, of the 6.5 million we used of half funding last year to support the grants, only 1.2 million has been spent to date by those groups. So ensuring that we're using the money within the time frame that's allotted and getting those permits out the door within our time frame is a growing concern.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Cleary. I see no other names on the list. Let's call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank Now to item 14, which is motions, and there are none. Item 15, I'll test the members of the committee. Would you like to do the in-camera minutes in public? Councillor Hensby moves the minutes of February 18th. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cleary, was that you? Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Added items. Notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? The date of our next meeting is April 16th, 2025. So we would ask for a motion to adjourn. At 11:39. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.